Hey, it's Chris from The Morning Mix. I got to chat with author Paul Davidson all about his new book, Company of Foos. It's a fiction book, but it's based off of his real-life experience working in the tech industry. What I love about this is the whole book is sort of a commentary on our desire to work our butts off all the time and the feeling that we need to do that because that's what everybody's telling us to do. So it's a great book. Also, Paul's a great guy. I really hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Paul Davidson.
Hey, man.
How you doing? Good. How are you?
Good. You get me. It's 8:30. You get me in a hat.
I love it.
You're not videoing it. Anyways,
no, it's good.
How's your world, man?
It's good. It's good. It's weird. It's like it's been kind of art imitates life, as you know. But yeah, so it's been good. It's all good. So how are you?
I'm good, man. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, it's funny. I was just randomly watching the jams in one of the episodes like a couple months ago. I was trying to think. Was that 16? 17?
Yeah, well, I think production was 15 and then it came 15. Out like spring of 16, like May of 16. And
how many years now are you doing this gig?
So I came back to the radio station in 19. So yeah, 2019 I was doing nights and then I did afternoons and I've been doing mornings now for almost 2 years.
Is it awesome? Do you love it?
Yeah, it's amazing. It is a dream come true in the sense of I've always wanted to do it, but that was always one of those things where I was like, well, nobody's going to let us do it. But that was the same thing in the jams. It was like we wanted to do this thing, but we're like, oh, nobody's going to let us do it. And then all of a sudden there you guys were. So
it's crazy. No, I left the Orchard in 19. I was packaging some stuff, some projects together. Those things are perennial things that, it takes forever.
Yeah.
Then I was running the entertainment division of a company called IDW. So Netflix's Lock and Key, Apple, show on Apple. That the comic book publishing company, and I headed the division, and we were basically developing TV projects and movies based on comic books. It was awesome until May when they laid off like the CEO, the CFO, the head of publishing, all these crazy, as a part of this whole strike and whatever. So it's been a quiet summer, but that was at the point where I was gearing up for this book to come out. So I was like, fuck it, I'll work on that. I wrote some things I acquired. I haven't announced it yet, but I don't know. I don't think you're a child of the 80s like I am, but there's this movie called Electric Dreams with Virginia Madsen that I acquired the remake rights to. So I'm working to move that forward. So I'm just keeping busy, man, and seeing what the next thing will be.
That's really, really cool. I didn't realize, because I knew, when we first started to work with you guys, I mean, so our mutual friend, Terrence Gray, who I haven't heard from in a very long time, but at the time...
Yeah, I don't know where he's at or what he's doing.
Oh, okay, so it's not just us. That's great.
No.
But he had connected us all, obviously, through the Orchard and then through the New York Television Festival. But at the time, I knew you kind of as like this... We didn't really know much about you. We knew it was like Paul from the Orchard. They like it and they're in, And then I remember, I think really, because I wasn't at the festival originally, the first time I think we met was actually on set in Chicago.
Was it?
I like face to face, maybe not on like a Zoom call or something.
Didn't you guys both pitch it at the New York Festival?
So only Jim pitched it.
Okay.
So yeah, Jim went solo because I couldn't go because of work. And so then I remember, but we were both like, oh, whatever, that'll be a cool experience. Go check it out. And then little did we know, but the truth is that if not for that, I don't think I'd be doing this. Like, I think,
Really? Why?
Yeah, I feel like it was an opportunity to showcase like, for Jim and I both, these guys can do more and they want to do more. You know what I mean? It's kind of like anything. You need someone to sort of champion you in that way. And you guys were certainly that for us. So it was great.
That's awesome. I mean, it's, I was chatting with Jim. I periodically connect with him on Instagram and he sounds like you guys are still super tight and he's, trying to be creative while doing his other stuff. And that's the thing, man. It's like, it's all of us. Look, if I could just solely be producing and writing stuff, awesome.
Yeah.
But we're all on that line. We're all standing, waiting, and continuing to try to stay as passionate as possible. You know?
I think too, like for us, we've really been purely on the creative side of stuff and then not totally sure how things even come to be. Like, we still don't have an understanding of what happened with the jams. Like, we have no idea, how did it get on Netflix? Like, we never understood. We would just get a call that was like, it's going to be on Netflix. We were like, this is great. Okay, see you later.
Well, I mean, that was just us, me and my team pitching places to get it at home. Now currently it's on iTunes.
Yeah,
I don't know where.
It's on Apple and like Prime Video, and I think the YouTube, you can buy it on YouTube.
Does anybody, like, have people seen it? Like the people you work with, do people come across it?
Yeah,
these days?
Yeah, every time. I mean, I never really lead with it because, oh, by the way, we had this thing. But,
right.
At the time, and because I'm back at this company, so I worked here from 2008 to 2016, and that was during production of the thing. And this was sort of a big, like, inspiration behind it. When I came back then, there's like a new crop of people here who have learned about it. So some of them have watched it or been like, I'm going to get to it, man. I swear, that kind of thing.
Right.
But every once in a while, somebody random, and it's generally the younger folks that start here in more entry level roles who hear like, oh, when this guy was an assistant, he did this thing. And so then I think those people get more motivated by it. And they're like, oh, let me check that out. Let me see what that was.
It was very well done. Even today, to look at it, like, it really, I periodically come back to those things that, like, we produced a bunch of those kind of things. It was like, maybe because it's always timing, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, is there some, like, if I'm still at the Orchard, which then became 1091, which was then bought by Chicken Soup for the Soul, which was then bought by some other company, like, where it all sits in the ownership side,
right? Not
for me to decide, or maybe Terrence if he was interested, but. You never know, like, especially you look at like what Freebie is doing.
Yeah.
All of these, like, who knows? Someone could say that's those 4 episodes are like the perfect example of, like, you want a WKRP, you want a news radio for today, like, here it is.
That's what we've always felt. We are so proud of it, obviously, and it turned out really, really well. It is a funny thing because did you guys just like take a bath on that? Like, we have no idea. I mean, I assume,
What did it cost us? Like, we put in most of the money for it. I want to say it was like $150,000.
Yeah, I remember it was somewhere around that, or 2, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I remember, like, Terrence, I'd get a call from him every couple of weeks, like, hey, can we have another 10? Another 15? And then we licensed it. So you licensed it to Netflix.
Yep.
That wasn't much. Maybe that was $30,000.
Yep.
So it was one of those things, like, also the CEO of the Orchard went to college with Terrence. So he like wanted us to try to work together, and I love what Terrence had been doing. So it was kind of like it's just a flyer. Like, but it's $150,000. It's not that much in the larger scheme. Let's go try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But by the way, it gets your name out. The company's out there. We're working with Meeting New Talent. Like, it's so interesting in the entertainment industry. People who don't understand it like to say, well, let's look at this one thing and see, does that generate profit? But by the way, you could take a bath on acquiring some movie from a first-time director, and then you have a relationship, and the next one is a huge hit.
Yeah.
And it creates a halo effect. Even just the announcement of doing the jams or acquiring a movie suddenly gets more people interested in working with you. So you can't look at it as a one and done financial thing.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, too, for me, I mean, my wife and I moved to LA right around then after it had come out, and she's an actor. So we were like, oh, this will be great. What an opportunity. And we didn't have kids yet. We were only had been married a few years, and we were like, you know what? We need a change. We've always wanted to do this. So for that reason, like, it was great. And then that ended up being probably the best decision we've ever made, because you learn so much about yourself and you grow, and, going to LA. And then you were so gracious in LA. We met up a few times, and and you helped me kind of get some meetings going, which was really great. And that
did I do that? I did.
Yeah, we met, and then you had introduced me via email to some folks, and like I had meetings at like TBS and Comedy Central and stuff like that never would have happened without the jams.
Right.
And so that was great. And then when I started writing for an ad agency, and I worked for Ryan Seacrest for a while, and it was all in the mix because we had this thing that you could point to that was like, oh, well, here's kind of either proof of creative talent or proof of being able to take something and create something. So for me, I think the whole thing has been, really a great blessing in terms of just moving forward. That's awesome. It's a nice thing to say at parties. Like, oh, by the way, there's this thing over, you know what I mean? Like, why not?
My show's on Apple.
Go check it out. It's on Apple. But now you've got a brand new book. And it's funny, when you had first mentioned to me that you had written a book, I thought like, oh, this must be like a nonfiction. It must be, like a memoir or whatever. And then as you guys sent stuff through, I was like, oh, wait, never mind. This is really cool. So you kind of took life experience, though.
Because nonfiction would have been a fucking snore. Right? I actually, it's funny. Like I've always been creative in that way. I wrote 2 nonfiction humor books when I first was here in Hollywood. One was called Consumer Joe, where I wrote these crazy letters harassing corporations.
Yeah.
And it was just the back and forth of ridiculous shit. Like I write FedEx and say, like, I saw Castaway, and I'm really concerned if I send a package and your guy lands on an island, he doesn't go through it. And
Right.
it's a back and forth where they're like, well, if there's food in it, we hope that you'll be okay with him eating it, and we'll deal with it later. But I did like a whole radio tour on that. I did a book called The Lost Blogs, which were like, what if historical figures had blogging technology? So, and I did a fun stuff with that. But I'd always wanted to get to fiction stuff, so I released a fiction novel last April called The Small Stuff, which was kind of like a bit like 500 Days of Summer kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I had written. Are we? We're just talking, or are we? What are we doing?
I'm just recording. I've been recording. Yeah, sorry. So I figured we'll just roll right into it.
Yeah. So, look, before I worked at the Orchard in Hollywood, I worked at Microsoft at Xbox, and I was actually in Hollywood. I was writing. I'd sold a movie to Disney. I had gone through all this crazy development hell. You know, like we had sold with some partners a show to ABC right after Lost had become a huge success. And it was about a jury. It started on the first day after a case had ended, a sequestered jury. And it was like about their lives and flashing back to the case. And I go through all these insane conversations. Like ABC's big note was, can you lessen the legal aspect of the show? And we were like, it's about a jury.
What do you want?
But can it be more like Grey's Anatomy? And we're like, really? Like, so I had gone through, I was selling stuff. It was great. And then like all at once, like my wife she's in publicity. So some of the stuff in the book is inspired by what had been going on with us.
Yeah.
She was working publicity in Hollywood, and she was kind of done. And so we kind of, it was like a fresh start, not unlike you deciding to go to LA at one point. And so I got a job heading up or starting, at the bottom at Microsoft, kind of being their guy in charge of movies and television service at Microsoft, kind of like what iTunes is, but they have on Xbox, still have it today.
Right.
I was there for 5 years. I ascended the corporate ladder. It was quite an experience. I mean, working in a tech company like Microsoft is like a cult at times. It's a community. They kind of set up the whole campus of these tech companies so that you never want to leave. So like in the book, like it's very much the culture of Microsoft is the backdrop of a fictional story about a family man moving for his dream job, which turns out to be a nightmare, while his wife also finds herself stuck in this suburban frigid wasteland. When we moved there in December. It was dark, 25 degrees, and you didn't see anybody in the neighborhood for 6 months. Nobody would ever come. They call it the Seattle freeze. Like when you first move to Seattle and you're not from there, people don't even reach out until maybe it's super sunny out, which is basically July 1st to July 28th in Seattle. But so it was a great experience. It was a crazy experience. And at the end of it, when I left to come back to Hollywood to run a film company, which is how we all met.
Yeah.
I decided to write a book inspired by it. So I wrote it, and then I sat on it because I was like, I don't need lawyers in my business. It's not like I was like revealing any trade secrets. It's all, there's nothing in there that anybody can use to that extent. But I wanted to give it time. And so finally, over the last year, it seemed like the right time. And so that's the backstory of it.
Yeah, it's funny. It feels also like culturally almost the right time. So much of what I see now, and I think I'm officially a millennial age-wise, right? Like whatever that number is, like 1980 something to like 1990 something. But I'm 85, so like but we've got a big conversation right now about like work-life balance and that sort of thing. So the timing, like reading about the book and thinking about culturally what people are focused on right now, and the fact that we came out of COVID where a lot of folks were like, oh wow, wait a second, I kind of enjoyed putting more focus on my personal life as opposed to just being focused at work. And that sort of just short thing you said about them making places so you don't want to leave, and the idea we have ping pong tables and pool tables, it's fun here, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of insane. Like they have this area at Microsoft called the Commons. It is the place that everybody will gather when you're not in front of your computer, and it's it's bookstores, it's bike stores, it's legal advice, it's hair salons, it's the food. Like there's a whole thing in the book about the salad bars, like the amount of choices that you're given, so you never ever want to leave, is very true. And this is the case that, I've been to Netflix many times here in Los Angeles, and they have free vending machines on every 5 feet, where you can just go up and get whatever you want. Oh, you need that new earphones for your iPad.
Yeah, they're right there.
You need an extra extension cord. You go to the lunch area every lunch, and there's tables filled with half a dozen, opportunities to eat from local restaurants.
Yeah. And it's not just like donuts and granola. It's like burgers and subs and salads, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
It's everything. And so that's the cultural, that's what these tech companies have brought to our culture. And, it's, you kind of get, it's like Clockwork Orange. It's like they, hooked up your eyes. They sat you down in front of a hypnotic screen. And then you're like, wow, this is amazing.
Oh my God, I love this.
It's like being trapped on a desert island and you find some old crackers that are like 12 years old. And you're like, these are the most amazing crackers I've ever eaten.
We should eat these all the time. Why haven't we been eating these? Did you find that
it's
when you... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go. No, go.
No. I was going to say, when you came back to the book post-pandemic, like post all that stuff, having written it years ago, did you have to go in and change, or was it more relevant than ever when you went back to it?
Man, other than like changing out a name for maybe a Taylor Swift, or gotta keep the Swifties,
Yeah,
engaged.
exactly. Yeah.
I have to say, there's many secrets about Taylor's past relationships weaved in throughout the story.
That's how you sell books, my man.
That's right. No, there was ironically not a lot that I had to change, because all that happened over the last 5 years is tech companies have become bigger and bigger, these monolithic entities that are even more ingrained in our day-to-day entertainment, and nothing's changed. All that's changed is like more people who were from that traditional Hollywood background are trying to figure out how they can position themselves to get a job in tech, because everybody wants it on their resume. So so I took clearly like artistic liberty in building a story about this. It's very much like The Devil Wears Prada, set in the world of tech. If you liked Silicon Valley, if you liked movies like that, books like Devil Wears Prada, it lampoons the ridiculousness. I mean, a lot of people say, what does the title Company of Foos actually mean? And aside from playing off of the phrase Company of Fools,
right,
there's this word that engineers use in tech companies. This is crazy. Like my first day I was there, I walked into a meeting. And what's funny is, and I talk about this in the book, you start and they give you a laptop, and you open up the laptop and you think, okay, I'm just going to set this thing up. I'm going to kind of slow roll this thing. And you open your email and you've got like 800 emails. You've got, your schedule is packed already. They have already started to tell everybody months before, this is when he's starting.
Yes.
This is what he's in, So you walk into a meeting and they're like, all right, Paul, what is the marketing plan for Foo? And I'm like, well, what's Foo? And they're like, well, Foo is the name of a product that we haven't thought up yet, but we need the marketing plan for it. And you're like, what? You're like, wait.
So there's no product.
There's no product. How do I come up with a marketing plan for something that nobody's invented yet? Well, we know it's going to fill that entertainment category. So you know who the audience is. So what's your marketing plan? And this is insane. Like they do that kind of thing. So that's where the title comes from. There's another thing. It's literally, it's like Who's on First, that old Abbott and Costello thing. They have this thing that they call the ORP, O-A-R-P. You come into a meeting room and you're about to start working on a project, and they write OARP on the board, and they say, all right, here's what the O stands for owner, A stands for approver, R stands for reviewer, and P stands for participant. Everybody in this room is going to fill one of those categories. And then it's a question of like, okay, well, I'm the approver, but I'm not the owner. So does the owner approve the product? Yes, the owner approves the product at the end of the day before it ships. Okay, but I'm the approver. And then I'm the reviewer. How am I different than the participant? Well, the participants will review it also, but they're only passively participating. You're the reviewer. You have a more active. I mean, this is like the insanity of some of these things.
Power is given and then taken away at every level. I think what's funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it just feels like that. I don't know. We had this experience. We moving from the Midwest, Chicago. I mean, we're in Chicago, so yes, it's Midwest, but Chicago is the third market. Like, it's not like we were in Sleepy Nowhere Town or something like that. No offense to you if you live in Sleepy Nowhere Town, but like we moved to LA And it was different. I mean, moving into a city where like the culture was different, both positive and negative, what people were interested in, what people wanted to talk to you about, and that experience of being at a party where like I'm talking to you, but I'm looking past you for the better person to go talk to.
Yeah.
But I think within even what you just described, there's relatability in any industry, no matter where you live, that this sort of thing happens. So the relatability factor, I think, is so high because we've all been in dumb meetings. But then also the stuff you just described, thinking of it from the consumer standpoint, I'm like, oh, they don't care about me. Like they're going to convince me to buy this thing no matter what, so they don't even need the marketing plan. Like just make it cool. And now I have to have it. You know what I mean?
It's so much of the data. And, I mean, your point that like this happens everywhere. If you've ever had a job, if you've ever, for the protagonist of this thing, it's, a guy jumping into a job in a culture that is completely foreign to him. Same with, his wife, Jess, landing, suddenly not having that identity of having a job and how you cope with that. But, this concept of, I just talked to you about like the kind of development notes you'll get in Hollywood. Like I wrote a movie about an intergalactic dictator who crash lands in middle America and has to take a job as a substitute science teacher while he's waiting to get rescued. And a lot of the development, nobody steal that idea.
Yeah,
stop. Lot of the stop. Don't write it down. One of the development notes from major producers was because he loses his powers. Think of like Darth Vader in the Force. He lands on Earth. He doesn't have the powers for some reason. He passes through the Earth's atmosphere. You're making it up. The producers are like, we don't believe that he would lose his powers by passing through the Earth's atmosphere. And this is how he starts the book. Because it's like, it's ludicrous. But it's just as ludicrous as Orp or Foo.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter where you're at. Like, you at your job at the station.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you sit in meetings and you have... we all have these ridiculous... It doesn't matter what... Like, I imagine the people who... There's some family out there that created highway reflector dots. Like, they're making money off of just manufacturing highway reflector dots. They sit in meetings and have ludicrous conversations about all aspects of this business. And they go home and they're like, why the bleep am I talking about the sheen on this thing? It doesn't matter. Like, put them on the highway.
That's all we need to do. Like, yes.
Right.
My brother works in food packaging, and he'll tell me about the conversations they have about, like, well, how do we keep the fries from not being so moist after 25 minutes? It's like, what? Like, just eat them, Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So the book is Company of Foos, and it's coming out very soon. Is it available? It's available as an ebook, right? As well?
It'll be available on October 17th. As a paperback, as an ebook for your Kindle, as well as an audiobook, all on October 17th.
Do you do the audiobook yourself?
I don't. I hired somebody who's far better than I am to do all of the voices and things like that. But yeah, if you have Barnes & Noble near you, you can go to Barnes & Noble. You can ask them to order it if they don't have it on their shelves. So it's everywhere that you buy or peruse your literary masterpieces.
And then are the other books you referenced, those are available still too, right?
Yeah. So the small stuff was the fiction novel I wrote last year. That's available everywhere. And then Consumer Joe is the book of insane letters. The Consumer Joe harassing corporate America, one letter at a time. And the Lost Blogs.
Yeah.
From Jesus to Jim Morrison was the other one.
I'm going to pass that to the classic rock guys here when they're done. Thank you so much, man. It's really great to just connect with you again after a few years. So thank you for setting this up. This is awesome. And I'm pumped to read the book. I can't wait.
I love it. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, man, you're so welcome. Thanks for taking the time. This is great.